Okay, so here is the video that I promised you. I'm going to go through all of the assignments that I've given you with a different data set, and then hopefully that will help you walk through the one that you've got. I'm using sales data, and it's in a comma separated file. First, I'm going to convert that into Excel format. I've also saved it as .xls. So here I'm going to go into the data tab in Excel and click on text to column. My data is delimited. The delimiter is the hashtag sign. So next, it's an order because it's not tab, semicolon, comma, or space. So I'm going to put the hashtag in there. That's my delimiter. Immediately the data is formatted as columns and I can click finish. And that's my data. Now I'm going to open the file in a tab, in a worksheet called sales. Let's right click that and add some color to it. I tend to color code my work. So I'm going to make the tab a blue. And if I create a new tab, you'll see that it's obvious. And because I've made the tab blue, all of the formatting I'm going to do in there is going to have hues of blue or the theme blue running through it. So first things first is to rename the headers into something that makes a little bit more sense. So I'm going to call it transaction number because that's what this is, and it's easy for people to read that. Anytime, and also if you look in this tab, these are dates. Excel stores dates as numbers. I think day 1 is 1/1/1900, and then day 2 and these are the dates. So if we go into the home tab, in the numbers group, we can choose to select that as a date. I'll just pick short date because that's my preference. We are going to take the units, we're going to format it as a number. Actually, it is a number and there is no number greater than 1,000, so I don't need to do anything to units. For dollars, I'm going to format that as currency, and I'm going to leave it as 2 decimal places because they are small numbers and that's not a big deal. I'm going to do some more work with this one. These are optional work, but I'm going to take South and render it as proper nouns, right? Starting with a capital letter. I'm going to create a formula. I don't want any formulas in this sheet. I'm going to create a formula, turn everything into proper, and then convert it back. I don't know that I can format it as proper, can I? I don't see an option for that, so I'm just going to use a formula. I'm going to do equals proper. I'm going to open bracket, and this. I only need to create one formula and I'm going to copy it all the way down. And then when I'm done with it, I am going to delete the formula. Okay, now we're going to copy the formula. 2 ways to do this, more than 2 ways, but one is you can drag the data down. It copies the formula, turns Midwest into capital Midwest. Or if you are creating a formula that is adjacent to a column of data in Excel, if you click on your formula, move your mouse until it turns into the autofill mouse, double click. What it does is it fills the formula as far as you have data in the adjacent cell. It only works if your formula is adjacent to one that has data in it. Now that that's done, I'm going to copy the text. First of all, let's put location here because I'm going to copy the text and I'm going to paste only the values over the original text. These are, whenever I make a change that is inconsequential, like this one is, I tend to make the changes and then delete, right? If I make South capital letter, it doesn't really take away from the data or anything. I've activated the copy. You can see that because there are crawling ants around the text I want to copy. So I'll click in here. And then I'm going to right click and select paste values. Paste values discards the formula and only will paste the values that is generated. So now you can see that these are in all caps. There are no formulas, so I can delete the original data. Press delete and that's gone. Now these are proper. For lip gloss is a little bit more complicated, and I'll walk you through what I do with this one. Because if I turn it using proper, I say equals proper, open bracket, and I select this, it's going to capitalize lip and gloss, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to do a slight cheat. I'm going to do equals left. Actually, I don't even know that that works. Yeah. Complicated, right? This is what you can do with Excel. I'm going to take this text and extract the first value. Okay, it's extracted L. Now I'm going to wrap that whole formula in an upper formula. I'm going to convert that into uppercase. I'm doing it one at a time, right? So that I can see that it works. Okay, so now you can tell from this formula that Excel does the innermost formula first and then the outermost formula. So I wrote the left formula, it gave me lowercase l, and then I took the whole left formula and wrapped it in an upper formula to turn that into an uppercase. Now, what I'm going to do is take that text and concatenate them with the rest of the data, which is quite, or substitute. I'm going to substitute the first value for this new value. So how do we write a substitution formula in Excel? Sub, click on substitute. I'm going to take this text. Actually, this is more complicated than I think it's going to be. So do I want to do substitute? I want to concatenate, right? Okay, let's see if we can concatenate. In order to concatenate, I have to extract the rest of the data. So I'm going to say equals right. First, I need to know how long this data is. So the length of this data is how much? 9 characters. So I'm going to concatenate 8 with this one, right? And to concatenate 8, escape, I'm going to say, I'm going to use the, can I use right? I can use right. Okay, the right brings back the number of characters I want, right? So if I take this value and I say bring back 9 minus 1, is going to give me lip gloss, and I can take lip gloss and add it to lip gloss. So let's build this formula. So now that I have the L that I want, I'm going to add it to concatenate. The AND operator is good for concatenating. And what I want to do is add it to right, open bracket, the same formula. This is complicated, by the way, but if you can follow it, please feel free to do that. And I'm going to use the length formula to extract the length of this. And I'm going to minus 1 from the output of length. So now I've got left, extract L, make it uppercase, and then add that to right, 8 characters. Let's see if it works. Awesome. If I click on the formula and I click on f of x, that brings up the formula wizard. And you can see immediately that D2 has lip gloss. And what length does is it takes that and converts it and so on. If you're using a PC, you can go into formula, click on, not show formulas, I'm sorry, evaluate formula. And when you evaluate your formula, it'll tell you what the answers will be. So upper left, that means it takes lip gloss and it's going to extract the one character from lip gloss. That gives you lowercase l. Then it evaluates to upper, that gives you the L, and right. When you do the right, it looks for the text, which is lip gloss. It calculates the length, that's the next thing, length of lip gloss. And then it tells you it's 9 minus 1, that evaluates to 8. So it's going to do right, lip gloss, extract 8 characters, evaluate that, and it gives you L and lip gloss, and click it together, you've got your lip gloss done, period. Now that that's formula done, I'm going to copy it all the way down, and you can see it's done it for every single value like we did before. that's the formula at the top as we did before. I'm going to copy products here, and then I'm just going to copy and paste only the values and delete the original formula. So click in here, we're going to paste values. The values work, is in proper case, I'm good, proper case, proper case, proper case. We can delete this. So this is what we do when we start in Excel. Where possible, you clean up the data, you format it, make it presentable, and then you start doing your work. For formatting, because the tab is blue, I'm going to have these be blue as well. I'm going to make the background blue. I could make it green, but let's start with blue, the same blue as we used for the tab. I'm also going to select everything, double click on it. Doing that widens the column so that it is the size of the largest data in it. I could have obviously have moved my mouse in and then moved it, open it, make it smaller or make it bigger. I could select everything and then widen it. This makes every single column I select the same size. So that's an option. Or I could move my mouse and just double click it and keep the data the same size as everything inside. For transaction number, this is a very large header for something so small. So I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to reduce the transaction, and then what I'm going to do is something called wrap text. If I click up here and say if the text is too long for the column, just wrap it. I do that by clicking on this option up there. Then transaction number sits on top of each other, and I don't need as much space to contain transaction number. Oh, you can't double click though, by the way, when you're doing that. So wrap, there we go. I'm going to take everything, I'm going to center it. Just oops, cancel, not merge, center it, because that's just how I work. So that's at least basic formatting for data before we start to work on it. In your Excel assignment, I've covered everything that you're supposed to do for A. Now for B, we are adding conditional formats. You can add conditional formats to text. You can add it to numbers. I'm going to add it to the numbers here. I might add it to text, but no, I won't add it to text because there isn't a lot of variation in the text and it'll just make everything complicated. So, but you can add it to text. Supposing you want to extract data for only Betsy, you could go in and add conditional format and make all of Betsy's sales red, and then you can sort your data on color. Okay, so let's click in here. And let's go to conditional formatting, which is in the styles option. Let's click on, you can highlight greater than, less than, between, equal to. You can highlight text that contains, date, all of that. Here, you can do top or bottom, top 10%, da, da, da. You can adjust the 10%. You create the rule and then you go and manage the rule. That allows you to edit it. You can create your own rule, but that's a little advanced for this class. For this one, I'm going to try with the data bar. I prefer the gradient fill. You can also do solid fill if that's more to your speed, but I prefer the gradient fill. Since I've used blue for the header, I'm going to use like green here, which kind of goes with blue. So what this conditional formatting does is that it fills each cell so that it is relative to the largest number in the sheet. So this number here is about halfway between 0 and the largest number. So that's how conditional format works. It fills it relative to the size of the largest cell. For num, we're going to try using icon sets, and I just pick one. It normally works. I don't have to do much editing when I use icon set, but these are the options you can explore. So I'm going to use the first one here, and you can see it's automatically made the lower values red, the highest values blue. The rule it works with, if you go into conditional formatting, manage rules, you can go and manage your rules that already exist. So for the icon set rule, because I am in column E9 and 10, doesn't matter where you are in column E. Because I'm in column E, it's showing me the conditional format for E. If I selected E and F, I would have the conditional formatting rules for E and F. So this is my icon set rule. If I edit that rule, you can see that the lower 33% of numbers is red, the upper values are blue, and then the middle is yellow. So it's divided it into thirds. Feel free to play with it. I rarely do because this kind of sorts the problem that I have. So that's conditional formatting with numbers. Now the next idea is to sort on date and store. I don't have year and month here, but I've got the date which contains year and month, and that solves the problem. Now, if I was going to overdo, I would sort. I would extract year using equals year formula. And I would extract month using equals month formula. And then sort on year and month, right? But that would be overkill because date will sort on year and month for me. Now we can go into sort and click on custom sort. If you click on custom, I'm clicking out of my data, right? It says out of range. So if I click in here, anywhere in there, and do sort and custom sort, it wants to know if I want to expand the selection. If I had picked one cell, I wouldn't get this option at all. It'll automatically assume I want to do everything else. But because I picked two cells, it wants to know if I want to sort the two cells or all of the data adjacent together. So I'm going to do expand the selection. It selects everything, as you can see on the screen. I'm going to click on sort by date first, and I want the newest date at the top. And then I'm going to add another level to my sort, and I'm going to sort by location. And that I'm going to do A to Z. Doesn't really matter. My option here is my data has headers. You can add as many levels as you want. So for the in-class assignment, you would do year first, and then sort by month, and then sort by store. So when I do OK, you can see here it's sorting from December 2026 all the way down, and then you get into November and so on and so forth. And after it sorts by that, it then sorts by, I see where this would go wrong. It then sorts by east and west. Okay, now I see actually, yeah, it works. So there we are. I'm just, sorting for sorting's sake. Job done. Now let's do the summarizing data. There are multiple ways you can summarize data in Excel. You can convert your data into tables. Doing that, I think, gives you less flexibility to do whatever you want to do with formulas. You can also create pivot tables. We're not going to be touching pivot tables, but you should research how to create pivot tables because having your data as pivots allows you to summarize it and then create pivot charts that display the content of the table. That's not what this topic is about. What I'm going to do, though, is teach you how to use formulas to summarize your data. I'm going to summarize the data by associate name to start with. So name here, I'm going to change that to sales associate. I just think that header is more informative than just name. What is name, right? So let's select that column, Control C. Let's paste it in a new column. Keep it away from your original data because if you don't do that, Excel tries to apply whatever rule you select for sales associate in column I to the rest of the data. So it'll ask you, continue with selection or expand selection, which just adds complexity. If you're working with data that is not part of your original data or not part of your table, separate it out by at least one column and then nothing will happen. So let's we've done that. See the crawling ant is still in copy mode. To escape copy mode, you have to click on a cell and press enter. If you don't do that, it'll just keep on recopying the data, which is not what you want. Needless to say, it messes up your work. So if we go in here, click on the data tab, that's where all of the functions to do with manipulating data resides. That's where we got text to column. We'll go and delete the duplicates. And my data has header again, and it's going to delete all the duplicate entry for sales associate. So I have one for each associate. I prefer to copy the data and delete duplicate because Excel is case sensitive. So if you have different cases, it'll treat them as different values. If you have a space at the beginning or at the end that doesn't exist in some data, it'll treat them as different values. So copying all of your data and deleting duplicates lets you see whether things are entered in incorrectly and you have to fix them. I also, so that's for sales. So for sales, I'm going to sum units. There's no really reason to sum units. I'm just doing it for exercise. Because if I'm summing units for Emily, then the number of foundations and mascara and lip glosses sold will be added together. And that's just messy, right? That makes no sense. But just for showing you how to create one formula that you can use multiple times, I'm going to do that. So sum units. And then I'm also going to sum dollars. This is arranged this way for a purpose. When I sum unit here, I'm going to create a formula that I'm going to move here. Because I'm using some form of relative addressing, when I'm summing units, when I copy the formula from here to here, it's going to move the reference from here to here because it's relative addressing. I write the formula here in J and then I copy it to K. And then what that says is that move the reference relative to where I am. So I'm moving one column over from J to K is going to move my reference one column over from E to F. The function I'm using is sum ifs. If I use sum function, for example, I can calculate or I can add up the dollars. What is total revenues? To calculate total revenues, I'm just going to say equals sum, open bracket, all of these values. Right? That's total revenues. I don't need to check on any criteria. But because I want to do total revenues for Emily, then I have to say search sales associate column. Wherever you find Emily, go into column E and add the unit sales to my total unit sales. At the end, it's only going to give me unit sales for Emily. Before I continue, actually, this is good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So this is good. This is good. So I'm going to take this now. I'm going to say equals sum if is an Excel function. And what I want to sum, the range I want to check is this. If this column here, comma, is equal to Emily here, then I want to sum this range. Now, once I'm done, I have to take some of this and make them relative address and absolute and mixed address. You've done all of that in class. So that when I copy the formula, I don't have to change anything. So here's what's going to happen. When I copy sum if from units to dollars, I want to sum if the name is Emily in sales associate column, column B, but I want to move to the dollars column. I want to go from E to F. So in that case, when I copy the formula, B is going to be a absolute address. I'm going to put $$ on it. I is going to be an absolute column, but not row, right? So if I copy the data from J to K, I want it to always reference column I. If I copy it, however, from J2 to J3, I want it to reference column I, but I want it the row number to move from 2 to 3. So I want relative rows, absolute column. That's what is called mixed addressing. So I'm just going to do F4 a few times until the $sign goes in front of the column number. I could have just typed $I in front of I, right? But if you have the F4 button, you can do function F4 or just F4, and that adds the $, for you. You just keep pressing it until you get to the one you want. Press it once, it's absolute address. Press it twice, it's absolute row. Press it 3 times, it's absolute column. Press it 4 times, it removes the $, sign. It goes to relative again. So my E is going to be relative. I'm not going to touch it. Press enter. That's the first formula created. Now I'm going to drag that formula over to sum dollars and double click on it. See what I mean? It's going to check for Emily in sales associate and sum dollars. Press enter. I'm going to copy that formula to Christina just to make sure it works, right? Click on that. See, it's going to check for Christina in B. And then some units. And if I copy it across, it'll do the same thing for dollars. So I'm going to copy this, and like we've done before, as long as there's data in the adjacent cell, I can double click. Can I double click? Oh, For some reason, it's not letting me double click, but there you go. I think it's because I created this formula already. That's why it's not letting me override it. But anyway, I've dragged it all the way down and copied it. Now I need to check that it works. Yes, I'm looking in sales and dollars for Halligan for that row. If I look in here, I'm looking in sales associate and unit sales for Ashley. That's correct. My formulas work. Now let's format these two. Because I like this formatting, well, you know what? I'm going to change it into a lighter blue. I'm going to take my color. Actually, let's make that. Should I make it bold? Maybe not. I'm going to take my paint brush and paint that formatting over these. So everything is wrapped around. And that's it. Sound good? Now let's format this as a number by clicking here and removing some of the zeros. One thing I forgot to tell you, whenever you create a formula in Excel and you see this hashtag figure, sometimes it happens with text, but it's usually with formulas. It means that the numbers that exist in these cells is wider than the width of the cell, so you kind of have to expand the cell to make it larger. Remove the zero, and that's fine. Now here is the dollar. I'm going to just format that as currency. I'm going to remove the zeros because we're dealing in thousands and the zeros don't really make a difference anymore. I'm going to format everything as center and make the column the same size. If you select the column, you widen one, it widens everything so it's the same size. This is a number. Numbers are formatted as on the right. They refuse to be centered, but that's fine. So here is your sales figures all done. Now the next thing I asked you to do is to summarize the data for calculate total revenue per store per year. I'm not going to do total revenue per store per year. I'm going to do total revenues per sales associate per year. If you just replace one value with the other, it'll work. So we'll create a two-sided table, one for years. Now, when you're creating summary tables, I'm not quite sure how formulas work. I don't know that formulas work. So if you're going to create the date, if you're going to use a year here, you might want to paste it as values. But anyway, in your data set, you have years. So you would copy the year column and delete duplicates. For me, I'm doing the sales associate column. I've done it once. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it for the second time. And then you would do the store column and paste it and again delete duplicates. So here my location is here. I'm going to do Control C. I'm going to paste it here, Control V. I'm going to select everything, go into data, and then delete duplicates. When I click on delete duplicate, it says, should I expand the selection? No, I only wanted to work on the selected data. So continue with current selection, remove duplicate. My data has header, click OK. The duplicates are gone. I only have this many locations. Now I'm going to copy it up here, because how you organize data in Excel matters to how it looks. And if you have a two-sided table, then it's okay to organize it this way. You can also have a four-sided table, right? Have options here, have options here, have options here. Because when I do the sum ifs, I'm going to sum if associate is Emily, location is East. Associate is Emily, location is Midwest, and so on and so forth. But I digress. Let's delete this header. Let's copy this, Control copy, Control C, Control copy, and then I'm going to right click because I want to paste in a special way, and I'm going to choose the transpose function. Transpose takes data that is in columns and puts them in rows, and data that is in rows and puts them in columns. So when I transpose it, I have a nice little organization here. Again, I have to double click or do escape to get the crawling hands gone. So let's delete that. And this is now, I have a skeleton for a table. And in here, I'm going to have the sum of sales in the East for Emily, Midwest for Emily, Midwest for Betsy, South for CC, West for Halligan, and so on and so forth. But I only want to create one formula for that. How you organize data matters to how your formulas will look. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to take my paintbrush. I'm going to paint that formatting over the rest of the data because it suits me. Now I'm going to do equals. sum ifs. We used sum if before. Ifs is when you have many criterias, 2 or more. If you have more than that, then you create a 4-sided table. But in this case, I'm going to go open bracket. I want to sum range. In this case, the range you want to sum will come first because you have multiple criteria, and Excel will keep on expanding till you get as many as you want. So you can see this 3 ... That just tells you this is a format that is dynamic. It'll grow to as many options as you need. So we're going to sum dollars. If you're creating a formula, by the way, if you select a whole column for one thing, you're better off selecting whole columns for everything, okay? They should usually be roughly the same size unless you're using one cell for criteria. So if you're going to get into the habit of selecting whole columns, try and select whole columns where you need to select multiple rows for your data. So because I'm using whole columns for one, I'm going to use whole columns wherever I need to select more than one row of data. So range to sum is the dollars range. That's an absolute address. Wherever I copy the formula to, I always want to sum the dollars range. So F4 makes that absolute. Next, the criteria range, it says here criteria range 1 is sales associate. That is also going to be a permanent address. Wherever I copy the formula to, I need that to be permanent. F4. And I'm going to search for Christina. This is always weird, right? I want the sales associate Christina, but because my formula is writing on top of Christina, I'm going to select the cell next to Christina because Excel allows you to move the reference once you create it. I want it to be in M1. Right now, I select L2. If I type M here, it'll select the right cell. Or I could leave it as L, right? And then use my mouse to drag the reference over to M. Whatever suits you. Now for that, I want to do what I did before, have a permanent column, but variable rows. So I'm going to do F4 once, twice, 3 times. I have $M2. That gives me permanent column, variable row, comma. My second criteria is the location here. It's so annoying to me when Excel is putting all of these formula things where I don't want it, right? I'm going to move it up. So select G and make that a permanent address, F4. Now the criteria I want to check, I put it at the top here in different rows. So for this one, I want in different columns, sorry. For this one, I want the row to always be 1 because East, Midwest, South, and West is always going to be in row 1, but different columns. So when I select the criteria for East, I'm selecting East because I'm creating the first formula that is in N, is in N2. So if you noticed, I selected M2 and now I'm selecting N1. So I'm going to create this formula relative to where I am so that when I copy it, the reference moves along. So F4 will freeze twice, will freeze the row number and allow the columns to vary. That's the end of my formula. And this gives me the sum. If I double click on it, it points to the right things. I'm good. I'm going to take that formula and copy it into Midwest, double click. I don't like it. The formula is very wide. That's why it's doing this. But let me move it all the way to the end to West. Double click on West. You can see, right, that it's looking in sales assistant and location and sum in dollars. All those are permanent addresses. And it's checking for Emily, permanent column, and West, permanent row. If I take that formula and I copy it all the way down, and then check, right? I check with Hallahan. It's doing Hallahan M10 and N1 and B, F, and G. If I click on the last one, Halligan, West, again, B, F, and G. So the formula works, one formula, copy, select everything. Now I'm going to format it as dollars. Currency. Since we're in thousands, I'm going to get rid of the zeros. I don't think it adds to the conversation. And done. These east, west, and north is our location. I'm going to take all of my data. I'm going to move it down once. I usually do that, right, for aesthetics. I don't like my data to touch the top or touch the bottom, but it's nice to do that when you're done with all of the formulas you're creating, because having spaces might complicate formulas for you. Once you create formulas and you move your data backwards or forward, Excel will adjust all of the references and you don't have to worry. It'll still be correct. I also like to not have my data all the way at the end so that when I format this, it's obvious what my formatting looks like, right? For example, if I go and put borders all the way around, you can see the borders all the way around my data because it's not touching here or here. And for these ones, I'm also going to move it down by one again. Select the row at the top. I want to move everything down. Right click and insert. The options come up. I usually shift cells down. If you shift it right, it won't make a difference. It'll just move it over. So I'm going to shift all the cells down. You can also do entire rows and entire columns. So if I do OK, it shifts everything down by one. I'm also going to put an additional space in here. Insert. Because I want to make it obvious that these are sales associate, right? And I also want to show you how to do this. So I'm going to merge the cells and center it. I'm going to type sales associate. And then I'm going to change the orientation of the text by going up here and doing it that way. Select it here and then center it, and then make that smaller. So now, see, these are my sales associate. Now I also like to give that some color. I'm going to make it some shade of green. I'm going to delete this because what I have, I've got sales associate here and I've got location here. I could make this sales associate and then put location here so that people know that these are locations at the top, right? This is just for me to show an arrow. Actually, I think it's better if I do multiple arrows, isn't it? This is better for me to put an arrow in here to say what you see on the other side is location. Done. Now let's give my data a header. I'm going to merge the cells and I'm going to say these are revenue generated by sales associate and location. I'll tell you why I've put this header there in a minute when I'm creating charts. But these are all of the summary I've asked you to create. If you had more than one criteria, if I had more than one criteria, I'll set up some criteria here. So I've got associate, I've got location. If I wanted to do by product type, I might set that up here. It'll be messy because it won't be the same size. You know, you literally have to have 4 options in order to set them up near each other. But there are ways, smart ways to think about organizing data. You can also ask Google for help, right? But this is for the assignment you want. Then the next thing we want to do is create charts. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to make these green to match with the green in the conditional formats. Make that bold. Everything done. Now the last thing I asked you to create is different kinds of charts, and we'll start by creating one for some units and some dollar. In order to create charts, you've got to select the data you want to use in your charts first. Excel plots XY. So in this case, the first column will be X and everything else will be put on Y. So the X column will be sales associate and then unit sales and dollars will be on the Y axis. To insert a chart, you go into the insert function and you will see the chart group. I usually end at recommended charts, but you can also go in here and select your own kind of charts. You can have 2D column charts, you can have tree maps, you can have line charts, you can have pie charts, and so on and so forth. the location might be different in Max, but they'll be there if you wanted to. I always start with recommended charts. If I click on recommended charts, it'll give me ideas of what my charts could possibly look like. So I'm going to pick the first one. That looks good enough for what I want and do OK. So I have a chart. Now you've got to give your chart a header, because what is this? Nobody knows what. I mean, I created the chart so I know what it is, but we got to give it headers, right? So we're going to take this and we're going to delete, and we are going to call that sum of units and dollars by associate. So that's your header. I'm going to move this out of the way so I can see the original data. Oh, this is so annoying. If you click on this again, you can go to the Home tab. Anything that is not grayed out is an option that you can work on while you're working with the charts. So here I'm just going to make this bold. And to complete it, I might add some color to the background. That is too much color. So I'll go with something a bit lighter to match the shades of color in my charts. Other thing I could do is go to chart design and change my color, and it'll change the color for the chart, but not the one at the top. Okay, so please make sure that if you're going to, I'm going to expand. Can I make this larger? Can I? I'm trying to make this larger to accommodate this by, because I don't like the BU. Oh, I didn't type by. Sorry. Yeah, so it won't change this color, so I'm just going to leave it. One thing I like to change, though, is I could change the layout of the charts if you want. There are several options for what you can have for changing layouts. I like better control over what my work looks like, but you can also select these options here for style. So I like better control over what my chart looks like. So I tend to use the chart style to change the style and then add extra elements if I want them. These are all the elements you can add. So I'm going to do add axis title, because I think that's fundamental. I've got my primary axis. I'm going to do the other one as well. And where is my axis? Undo. Oh, did it take away my axis? Oh, sorry. I took away my axis. That's not what I meant to do. Axis title is what I meant to add. So now for the vertical axis, I'm going to call that dollars. And for the primary axis, I'm going to press enter. I'm going to select this and call it associate. Done. Okay, this is obstructed my original data, so I'm going to do Control X. Go in here and Control V. I've got my chart. Go back. Now we're going to create a chart for just sum of dollars. Now, because sum of dollars and sales associate name are not next to each other, I'm going to select them by holding down the control key. And I think the key to hold down on your computer is command key if it's a Mac. So hold control key and select your other set of non-continuous data, congruent data. Well, if you're selecting data that's not next to each other, that's how you do it. So this is selected, that's selected. You need to have your data selected before you can pick a chart. So let's go to recommended and pick another style of chart. I don't like all the options I'm given, so I'm going to go to all charts. And I like this one. So let's use this one because that's different colors. You could do line, pie, anything you want. So let's do column. Pick this one and do OK. So that's my new chart. I'm going to call this revenue by associate. And this time I'm just going to make it bold. I clicked somewhere else, right? I could have just done edit when I'm done typing as well. I'm going to make that bold. And if you click somewhere else, it deselects it, right? For this one as well, let's go into chart design, add axis title, one for primary, horizontal, and one for vertical. go to the vertical, call that dollars again. See what I'm doing? Labeling everything in your work just makes good practice. Press enter, done. Go to this one, type associate. If I don't want to press enter, I'll click anywhere out of that and it takes that as the name. Now I could click on this. Because everything is so colorful, I could go in and find a really light color for the background, or even change the font color. Maybe we should change the font color for this one to something a bit purple. Yeah, okay, let's do, maybe not. Okay, so let's do that. That's done. I'll just leave it the way it is. So that's it. Again, I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, Control C. Oh, and then go to new sheet and paste it here, Control V. Now let's go back and do one more chart, right? Because we didn't create this so that we don't chart it. So I'm going to select the data and I'm going to do insert. Notice I selected the headers with it, right? Because I need labels to show up in my chart. It makes it easy to understand. Did I copy this or cut it? I think I might have copied it. Anyway, we'll see. This is my data. It gives me options. I don't like any of these options. Shall we try line charts? All charts. Let's go to line chart and select the line chart option. I don't know what this one. Oh yeah, no, it's done by person. I don't want to do it. I want to chart location instead of person because there are fewer locations, right? It could do it by person, too many people. There are fewer locations, so it's easy to have a different color for a different location. So in this case, blue is west and so on and so forth. So let's do OK. Let's give it a title. I could type the title, or again, I could use a formula, right? And just select one I created before. Press enter. See, the title here is the title for the chart. What is good about using a formula in your chart title is if I ever change this title, let's add Dami to it and press enter. Guess what? This will also change. So, okay, but if I wanted to make a change, I'd have to change the original data, not the other one. So, okay, so there we are. We've got our new charts. Let's take this. Let's make it bold, because bold is the least we can do. You could also add underline. Yeah, you could add the 2-axis information. I'm not going to add it because this seems like enough information. So press enter or click out, done. I'm going to move my charts around. Now, let's go in here. You notice, right, that this revenue is in dollars. This is not in dollars. We can actually change the formatting here. If you click on here, you can't change formatting up here, but what you can do is go to the side here. And I think that's chart styles. This is chart filters. Is this chart elements remove? Let's go to format. Can I format it? One of these options should allow me to have it as dollars, right? You could also do select change quick layout. That might allow you to make it as dollars, but it's not. So let's see. If I click on the filter, can I do that? No. What about this one? No. What about that one? Oh, I'm annoyed now because usually you can change the chat option. I was trying not to bring up the context menu because I don't know if you Mac people have context menu. If you double click on any of the chat option, it brings up the context menu at the side. One of this is numbers, and I can go to the bottom and do formatting. Right now it's formatted as a custom format, but I could easily go in here and do a currency, right? With dollars, it says how many decimal places. I want 0 decimal places. And if I press as soon as I'm done, can you see it's formatted as dollars? So I'm good. So dollars, I don't know why it chose to make these dollars and these ones not dollars. I can't say, but yeah, that's how to keep it equal. I'm going to go back. I have 2 copies of this, so I can delete. Click on it, hit delete. I'm going to take this one, Control X. I'm going to move it to the chart sheet. Control V. Whenever you're creating charts, by the way, these here that you can see, everything you can see is prime real estate in Excel. So you try and keep your data at the top so your users don't have to scroll across or below. But if you have to scroll, below is preferred to across. So you can always choose where you put your data, but just FYI, in Excel, users prefer to scroll down than scroll sideways. These can fit sideways. Imagine you had data sideways. Someone would have to know to scroll to find that data. So how you organize data also matters. So we've got 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take the charts. I'm going to rename it. We're going to call it charts so we know what's in there. I'm also going to take it. I'm going to take the tab color and change it to green, a bold shade of green. I like bold colors in chart tabs. And then that is done. We are good. Everything is color coded. The colors go with each other. Everything looks good. So this is the sum of all the assignments I've asked you to do for this class. I will see you next week, and remind me to talk about range and range names. Bye.